We'll turn it over.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 8th County of Los Angeles Citizen Redistricting Commission regular public meeting for 2021. Today is April 14th, 2021, and the time is 7:03 p.m. We will now call the meeting to order. As a reminder to the public, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to youtube.com/LA County Redistricting. The link to the recording will also be posted and accessible through the Los Angeles County Redistricting website. If at any time any members of the public have any technical difficulties, please message me, Tyler, and we can work towards fixing the issue. As a reminder for members of the public interested in making a comment, please click on the Q&A button on the Zoom toolbar and enter into the Q&A section the following information. A, that you are interested in making a public comment. B, your name. C, the organization you are affiliated with, if any. And D, which agenda item you would like to make a public comment on. When you are called to make your public comment, you will be prompted to unmute your mic, and so you can speak. I will now take the roll call. As a reminder, commissioner names will be called in a rotating alphabetical order by last name. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Haile Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Saira Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Priya Shidaran.
Present.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Present.
Commissioner John Vento, excused. Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Present.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Present.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Present.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Present.
Commissioner Apollonio Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Present.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Present.
Thank you. I will now turn the agenda over to Co-Chair Williams.
We're at approval of the agenda. There is one change. I'd like to remove an item under section B, 3I. We had a resignation from the commission and for personal reasons. After consultation with family, that was withdrawn, and so we don't need to have that discussed. If there are no other changes to the agenda is approved.
Commissioner Holtzman has his hand up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, hi, Co-Chair Williams. I'm just a little uncomfortable about one thing on the agenda. I'm not going to move to have it removed entirely, just maybe modified slightly. That's the invitation to county legislative staff to speak with us and tell us how they go about doing their business. I can show you why I'm uncomfortable really quickly. There's a quick screen share, which I'll do right here. Here we go. The Legislative Affairs Office works in consultation with the Board of Supervisors. This is from their website. They develop the legislative priorities, and then they take them to Sacramento, and that's what they do. It's something that the counties have. But I also wanted to show you that. So anyway, first of all, they're very close with the Board of Supervisors, who we're not supposed to interact with at all. And second of all, of course, they would be the office that took the opposition to this bill here, SB 958, which created this commission, to Sacramento. You can see that the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors actually opposed the creation of this commission. So, I mean, I'm sure they have interesting things to tell us, and to I'm interested in hearing how they go about doing their job. Ask that we ask them not to talk about how we can ask them for assistance, because I don't think we should be asking them for assistance. But it would be nice to hear their role in things. So I don't, and especially since we're already here ready to talk, I don't want to take that. But those are my remarks. If you want to ask them to leave out how we could work together, that would be great. If not, I'm fine with going ahead to hearing what they have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Holtzman. So noted.
Co-Chair Maeda also has his hand up.
Okay.
So thank you, Commissioner Holtzman, for the reminder that we are an independent commission. Well, we are not to be influenced by the Board of Supervisors, and we aren't. I think we are, in fact, ahead of the game with regards to our independence. We have an independent consultant, independent counsel. We've been selected completely independently of the board. We have bylaws that are very strong in terms of our independence, and we will. And I know that the education working group has jealously guarded our independence and will continue to do so. I'm confident of that. But it is a good reminder that we are to be independent, and we certainly want to hear from the folks that are going to be presenting tonight, all of them. But we should all keep in mind, it's a good reminder that we are to be independent and not to have influence by the board. And if there's any issues like that come up, we certainly can discuss them. We're supposed to report them, any kind of contact, etc. Thank you for noting that, and I'm sure we will all keep that in mind as we proceed.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, the agenda is approved. Okay. We should move to public comments. Any public comments?
There are currently nobody with a public comment for general public items, but we may want to wait just for 30 seconds.
Okay. Give them a chance to provide information if they haven't already. Okay.
And just as a reminder for members of the public interested in making a comment, please click on the Q&A button on the Zoom toolbar and enter into the Q&A section the following information. A, that you are interested in making a public comment. B, your name. C, the organization you are affiliated with, if any. And D, which agenda item you would like to make a public comment on. And again, when you are called to make your public comment, you will be prompted to unmute your mic so you can speak. Co-Chair Williams, I believe we're good to go. There are no public comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. We did receive a written letter. Is this where we would discuss this? Or
actually, it's just a notification. We received a written letter from the 14 organizations or 12 organizations that will be presenting later tonight, and that's been shared not only with the public but with the commissioners. And there were also some postings in terms of agenda items upcoming that also are available on our public website, specifically in terms of agenda item 4 and agenda item 6BI.
okay.
6AII. So other than that, there are no other public written comments submitted.
Thank you, Vera. So now we'll move on to consent items. Co-Chair,
thank you. For the consent items, we have review and possible action on the March 10th, 2021 draft Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission minutes. Are there any comments, corrections, suggested changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to have those minutes approved.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any further discussion? Let's have roll call then on the motion to approve the March 10th, 2021 minutes.
I will now take roll call. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Zaida Soto.
Present. Apologies for the technical issues.
Commissioner Priya Shidara.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Aye.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Garina Wong,
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin,
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman,
Uh, yes, but I think the chair said March 10th when he meant March 24th.
I guess that is right. For some reason, my item says March 10th. Is it March 24th was the last meeting?
yes.
My apologies. I assume those who voted understood it to be the last meeting minutes. If I can make that a friendly amendment to my motion, March 24th, 2021. Thank you. And on that basis, Commissioner Holtzman.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda,
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza,
Move for approval.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon,
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanela Segura,
Yes.
Commissioner Haile Soto.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to our first action discussion item, we're going to hear some presentations today that the working group on education brought forward. So I'd like to recognize Commissioner Mark Mendoza, the lead of that working group.
Thank you, Co-Chair Maeda. This evening we have both Samara Ashley and Katrina Schultz, who work for the County of Los Angeles in the Chief Executive Office, Legislative Affairs, and they will be educating, not advocating, this evening, and basically giving us an overview on their approach to legislative matters. So with that, and I believe there'll be a Q&A time frame or time available to us as well. So I'll let them choose the order in which they wish to speak, and the floor is theirs.
Wonderful. Thank you, commissioners. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be with you all here this afternoon. And I am joined by my colleague, Katrina Schultz, who is an analyst in the CEO's Office of Legislative Affairs branch and oversees and looks at issues related to redistricting. So we are appreciative of, again, the invitation to join you for educational purposes tonight. I'm very clear that this is an independent commission. And again, this is just for educational purposes on our process. First, I'd like to discuss how the county prioritizes legislative policy bills and budget items for advocacy purposes. Our office works closely with the Board of Supervisors, also with their legislative staff, and also with departments to assess and identify department priorities, emergent issues, and other related priorities for the board. And for the past year, we have also prioritized COVID-19 recovery and response at both the state and the federal level. Some of the key issues that are board priorities include child protection, health agency integration, homelessness, justice reform, environmental health, oversight and monitoring, sustainability, and elimination of racism and bias in the county. Prior to advocating on any issue, legislative analysis and the development of county advocacy positions must be coordinated through our office and consistent with board-approved policies. Recommended advocacy positions can come from county departments, board offices, or county commissions. And consistent with board policy, our office works closely with the Board of Supervisors on these advocacy efforts. When a department recommends an advocacy position, it's usually consistent with existing board-approved policy as adopted in the state legislative agenda and or federal legislative agenda. And my staff works to prepare what we call a pursuit of county advocacy position for inclusion in a Sacramento or Washington, D.C. update to the board. Our Sacramento or Washington, D.C. updates provide the board written notification of new advocacy positions that the county will be pursuing based on existing policy with an overview and the status of recent legislative actions. If there is not an existing policy, board-approved policy to support the department's recommendation on the legislation or a budget item, an analysis of the issue will be prepared by our staff in coordination with the affected departments, and the analysis must include fiscal, programmatic, and service impacts on the county and affected departments. And we'll note that a county advocacy position, is a matter of board policy determination. If a board member places a motion on the board agenda recommending an advocacy position, my staff will prepare and add an agenda memo in coordination with the impacted departments that includes the county impact. If the motion is approved, the recommended advocacy position will be adopted and the related policy will be added to our state or federal legislative agenda and becomes effective immediately. Our designated advocates, or what we call our registered lobbyists with the county, represent the county's positions in both Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Our lobbyists meet with members, testify at legislative hearings, and represent the county's interests in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. And under the county's legislative program, and per board policy, department staff and commissioners do not advocate specifically on legislation. That is done directly with our county registered lobbyists and advocates. However, elected officials may advocate on their own behalf. Again, that is generally speaking, and I understand that the CRC is an independent body. Again, so I understand that you guys are independent, and so I'm just referencing to some other commissions that we work with. Guidelines for non-independent commissions, generally speaking, is to contact the county's legislative analysts that they work with, that is appointed to their commission. They submit draft recommendations to the CEO's office that I work in legislative affairs for review. Our staff will review and advise if the commission's recommendation is consistent with the existing board policy and findings. And the commission can then make formal recommendations to the board for county position and submit findings. As it relates to the 2020 census and redistricting, the county has been engaged in advocacy, as was prior brought up, on advocacy positions and have taken positions on various legislation that have been consistent with board approved policy and have done so throughout the years. Both on the state and the federal side. I know that I only had about 5 minutes, so I just wanted to run through those issues. Happy to take any questions that you have. And again, thank you for the opportunity to come here and provide some educational information on our process with the Board of Supervisors in the county.
We have a couple hands from the commissioners. We have Commissioner Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Holtzman.
Thank you very much for that detailed presentation. Can you tell us roughly how long it might take should we want to get the Board of Supervisors to take an advocacy position in support of a change that we might like to see in the timing related to redistricting?
So Commissioner, thanks for the question. I think some of that might depend on your existing process, but as it relates to when a request or a recommendation would come over to the county, whether through the Board of Supervisors offices or through our the CEO's Office of Legislative Affairs, we would then take time to brief the board if they were not already familiar with the issue or the request and or their staff members. And so there's not it depends on the issue, because then we would also bring in the relevant departments to be engaged on that. And then we would make a recommendation based on whether or not we had existing policy. And if we do not have existing policy, then that would be up to the board to determine whether or not they were going to introduce a motion on the issue. So I hope that helps. I don't have like a 5-day or an exact time frame. It depends on the issue.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Ms. Ashley, I wanted to say I looked at your website and I'm very impressed by some of the things I found on that website, especially your detailed legislative program, your report on how well you did last year, almost stuff that's suitable for glossy printing on your legislative priorities. I'm wondering if you could just tell us, who's involved with putting those together and how they get put together.
Sure, and thank you for that compliment. Greatly appreciate it. We have a small but mighty team, and it's done internally. Our staff goes through the legislation that we have taken positions on, and we being the county, and then have just put together a summary of those items at the end of the legislative year, just so those like yourselves and many others who are interested can learn about what we've been advocating on behalf of our over 10 million residents in the county.
Okay, and the board, I assume, approves them?
So the information is already items that either the board has taken a position on legislatively, or whether it has already been done by pursuit. So the board is aware of all of those bills where there's a position of either support or opposition. So they're aware of that information.
Yeah, well, the program's very impressive. Again, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. I work with an amazing team of people and throughout the county. So.
I believe we have no other questions from the commissioners.
Again, if I could just thank you all again for the opportunity and wish you a successful meeting. Have a wonderful evening.
Samara, before you go, we need to see if there are any questions from the public.
Oh, okay.
These are questions of clarification.
Sure.
Ty, are there any questions from the public?
There's currently no questions from the public, but let's give it a few more seconds if any members of the public are typing in their names into the Q&A.
Ms. Schultz, did you have any prepared remarks that you wanted to share?
For that question, I do not. I was just here to help answer any questions, any technical questions. But thank you for asking.
Okay, we have one question from the public. Melody Taylor Stark asks, "Can you post a link?" I'm guessing this might be referring to the link that Commissioner Holtzman was talking about.
Sure, we can post a link in the chat of our website on the CEO's page. Happy to do so. It'll probably just take me a quick second to just get it, and then I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, and I believe there are no other questions from the public.
Are there any other comments, questions from the commission for our speakers?
Okay. Commissioner Mendoza, you have your hand up.
No.
It's sort of a follow-up to Commissioner Holtzman's question. You can't give a specific. Excuse me, wrong commissioner. It's from Brian Setchers. The time frame in which to have something go through the process that we as commissioners might be involved in. Are we talking weeks, months, quarters, a year? I know it's a general question, but any idea?
So it would also depend on, are you making a recommendation for brand new legislation? Are you looking at supporting legislation? That also would help for me to give you a sort of a time frame.
It's hypothetical, but I think maybe somebody else wanted to chime in on this. But if it was a modification, let's say, to existing legislation.
So just so I'm clear, so you're looking at making or recommending amendments to, say, an assembly member or senator for a current bill, and you're asking what if you were to engage the county and ask us to also weigh in?
Commissioner Setcher, do you want to provide a little bit more?
I just want to make sure I'm clear. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think that's an apt characterization of the present situation. There is a bill working its way through to make changes potentially to the to some of the guidelines relating to redistricting and the next upcoming election. And we might want to recommend a specific language that we feel ought to be in that corrective legislation. Is that something that the county could do should the Board of Supervisors agree? Would that take a day, a week, or a month? Any idea?
So I would say that if you were to engage us on legislation, our staff would then review that with impacted departments. So it could take anywhere between, possibly 1 to 2 weeks, because we try to be very timely. And it would also depend on when the bill would be going through the committee process or being heard. So there's a couple of different factors that would impact our timing. So it's hard to just sort of pinpoint it, but it wouldn't be a month or a year if we're talking about amending legislation in the current session. Okay.
We have 2 more hands. We have Commissioner Holtzman, then Co-Chair Maeda.
So I just thought of something. Maybe your office is involved with this, maybe it's not. The bill that created us said that it's a bill that it's imposing state mandated local costs. And it implied, which is not common, but that the county can get reimbursement from the state mandates claims fund or whatever it is. Does your office take any role in getting such reimbursement? And if so, what's your role?
So I'd have to read that language. I'm not familiar with that provision. And so my office is not involved in that.
All right, I was just curious. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Co-Chair Maeda.
So, Ms. Ashley, I assume that urgency of particular action is going to factor in. In other words, if someone came to you and said, "This thing is moving, we need to, get on board or oppose it right away," that would be something you would take into account in terms of trying to evaluate, seek approval, et cetera.
So yes, so there's a variety of factors that we take into consideration before taking or recommending a position to the board on legislation. And timing is one of those factors.
Any other questions, comments from the commission? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, for both of you for being here as part of our education. The commission really appreciates it.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Commissioner Mendoza.
Yes. Thank you, ladies. And we have today the opportunity to hear from a number of different people. And it's been something of a moving target for me, and I apologize. I'd heard 8 different organizations, and what's on the screen looks like quite a lot, which is great. It's wonderful. And we're going to hear from this working group formerly called a coalition, and they'll present to us for 15 minutes, and we'll have opportunity to have a Q&A for hopefully the same amount of time. So with that, I don't know who's first, but we're ready to start this.
So the process, Ty is going to be elevating all these individuals to be panelist speakers. And I noticed the commissioners have already begun to turn off their video so we can showcase the panelists. So as soon as he gets them elevated, I will stop sharing my screen. They can take over the screen and they will present.
Great, thank you. Just want to make sure everyone's here. Gayla, were you able to elevate everyone to panelists?
Ty is in the process of doing that. Ty?
I believe I elevated everybody that is currently here that was on the list. We have a couple people who are on the list, but currently not in the meeting.
Okay.
But please let me know if there are any members I am missing.
There's
okay. Oh,
a quick check.
Yeah, I believe somebody under the name of Civic Engagement Department, but I just want to make sure that is the right member.
I believe that's a community coalition, Kirk Samuels.
Okay. Again, please let me know if I am missing anybody, and I will elevate them to panelists.
Great. Sorry, I'm just doing a quick check. I think Marco's here. There she is. Okay. I think we have everyone. So we can go ahead and get started. Good evening, commissioners. Firstly, we wanted to thank you for inviting our organizations to join your meeting this evening and introduce ourselves. My name is Kiana Asamonfar, and I am from California Common Cause. And this evening, I have the pleasure of introducing a number of organizations to you. So we are a working group of organizations who have an interest in creating an open, inclusive, and accessible redistricting process that puts communities first and creates maps that empower communities to make their voices heard in local government. Our plans, capacity, and interest in redistricting will vary by organization. Some of us will be mobilizing community input on district maps. Some of us will be analyzing maps, and some of us will be proposing maps to the commission. We encourage you to view our organizations not only as your partners, but also as a sample of the diversity of organizations and communities that will be engaging in the redistricting process and that the commission should work with. One of our shared goals is to help deepen your understanding of participation barriers and to support your ability to connect with diverse communities throughout Los Angeles County and the organizations that serve these communities. Our organizations can host workshops, participate in panel discussions, and present to the commission on a variety of topics, including best practices for community outreach and engagement, redistricting, language access, and 2020 census outreach. And with that, I'd like to hand it to Julia Gomez from the ACLU of SoCal. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you again for hosting us this evening. We're going to go through a series of introductions, so I'll go ahead and start. My name is Julia Gomez. I am a staff attorney at the ACLU of Southern California in our First Amendment and Democracy Project. We're a civil rights advocacy organization, and one of our issue areas that we focus on is voting rights and political access. I will go ahead and pass it on to Alejandra Ramirez Zarate from Advancement Project.
Thank you, Julia. And good evening, commissioners. My name is Alejandra Ramirez Zarate, Senior Policy Analyst with Advancement Project California, and we are a civil rights public policy organization committed to ensuring equitable districts in a more representative and responsive democracy for Black, Indigenous, people of color. And Advancement Project California also serves as the co-lead for the People's Bloc, and it is a county-wide redistricting coalition comprising grassroots organizations focused on racial solidarity and fair maps that increase the political power of communities of color. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you. And I'll hand it off to my colleague Daniel Jian from Asian Americans Advancing Justice Los Angeles.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Daniel Jun, and I'm a staff attorney at Asian Americans Advancing Justice Los Angeles. We are a legal services organization that advocates for civil rights on behalf of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders across Southern California. This includes working with the state and local redistricting commissions to ensure that the redistricting process creates a more representative government for citizen and non-citizen Californians across the state. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you all. I will pass it over to my colleague, Kiana Asamonfar at California Common Cause.
Thanks, Daniel. And hi again, I'm Kiana Asamonfar with California Common Cause. We are a nonpartisan organization that focuses on creating a representative, responsive democracy and addressing inequities in our government. In pursuit of this mission, we have advanced policies to create transparent, community-led redistricting process in California, both on the state and local level. We look forward to working with the Commission and LA County residents to empower communities and make this once-in-a-decade process a success. And with that, I will hand it to Samuel from CLCD.
Commissioners, guests, good evening. I'm Sam Sukatan from the California League of Conservation Voters Education Fund. There's a recent writer says that inequality and climate change are the twin challenges of our time, and more democracy is the answer to both. In that spirit, we're before the State Commission and a number of counties and cities to encourage a transparent and fair process, encourage thoughtfulness towards our shared responsibilities under federal and state voting rights and civil rights legislation, and promoting consideration of our built and natural environments, from our ports to our deserts to our freeways and everything in between, and how they unite, divide, and define our county's communities of interest. We hope our comments, our maps, and our other interlocutions are useful to you, and glad to be as helpful as you feel appropriate. Passing it over to our colleague from California LULAC, Yvonne.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Yvonne Gonzalez Duncan. I am the State Director of California League of United Latin American Citizens, also known as LULAC. LULAC is the largest and oldest Latino organization in the United States. LULAC's mission is to advance the economic condition, educational attainment, political influence, housing, health, and civil rights of all Latinos. We hope to engage in this process to promote the goal of of our representation of all Latinos who reside in Los Angeles County. Our efforts will be to encourage best practices for community outreach and mobilization. We look forward to this work, and I thank you. I would like to introduce our next speaker is Chirla Karen Diaz.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Karen Diaz, and I'm the Electoral Field Manager for the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, also known as CHIRLA. CHIRLA is a statewide organization with national impact. Our mission is to achieve a just society fully inclusive of immigrants. CHIRLA is one of the largest and most effective advocates for immigrant rights through our organizing, our community education, and civic engagement. CHIRLA's organizing bases are located all across LA County, with members in the Antelope Valley, San Fernando Valley, South LA, Southeast LA, and downtown. Redistricting is really important to our communities at CHIRLA because many times due to the lack of awareness, immigrant communities are excluded and not taken into account in the decision-making processes that occur throughout this redistricting meetings. We look forward to participating through public testimony and sharing our community of interest. And with that, I would like to pass it on to my colleague, Kirk Samuels from Community Coalition.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Kirk Samuels. I'm the Director of Civic Engagement with Community Coalition. Community Coalition is a nonprofit social justice organization working to address the social and economic conditions in South LA by empowering residents to fight for policy solutions that build up the community. We elevate the voices of our members, shift power to the community, and tackle the root causes of poverty, crime, and violence. Community Coalition also serves as co-lead of the People's Bloc with the Advancement Project California, which is a county-wide redistricting coalition comprising of grassroots organizations focused on racial solidarity and balanced maps that increase the political power of Black, Indigenous, people of color communities. Thank you for your time, and now we'll pass it to Margot Reed from the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles County.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Margot Reed. I'm Vice President for Voter Service for the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles County, a nonpartisan political organization focusing on county government. We are part of the 101-year-old League of Women Voters US and League of Women Voters California, which have been involved in redistricting and voting rights for decades. The League's goal is to ensure that the redistricting process provides for ample public education, extensive opportunity for all communities to define their communities of interest, and have multiple opportunities to provide their input in public hearings. The League has monitored state and county redistricting for several decades. And now I would like to introduce Jacqueline Cotto from Naleo.
Good evening, commissioners. It's a pleasure to virtually meet you all today. My name is Jacqueline Cotto. I'm the State Director of Civic Engagement Policy, representing National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, Naleo Educational Fund. You have also heard my colleague Giovanni Hernandez, who is our redistricting manager, call in to give public comment. He's also in our redistricting team. Naleo Educational Fund is the nation's leading nonprofit organization that facilitates the full participation of Latinos in the American political process, from citizenship to public service. And our redistricting efforts are mainly focused on the state redistricting, and we are hoping to incorporate the Los Angeles County's redistricting work within our statewide efforts to mobilize the Latino community in the redistricting process. So with that, I want to thank you for your public service, and we look forward to working with you. I will pass it on to my colleague, Stephen Ochoa from Malta.
You're muted.
That was muted. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, commissioners, for having us. My name is Stephen Ochoa. I am MALDEF's National Redistricting Coordinator. MALDEF, the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, founded in 1968, is a national nonprofit civil rights legal nonprofit and advocacy organization. We advocate for the empowerment of the traditionally disenfranchised communities, particularly the Latino community. And we have been involved in redistricting since our founding. I am not a MALDIF staff attorney, I'm a MALDIF demographer, and have been engaged in redistricting since the 2000 cycle. So no legal questions for me, please. But I will say that MALDIF, in our California history, where our headquarters is located in downtown Los Angeles, we have participated in California statewide redistricting. We have engaged in Los Angeles regional redistricting, including litigating the Garza case in the 80s, 90s to help lead to the first creation of a Latino opportunity district in the county of Los Angeles, which led to Gloria Molina's election. And we will be continuing to advocate to you this redistricting cycle with maps, and we will be providing legal and technical support to communities throughout the county. So with that, I will popcorn over to Stuart Waldman at VICA.
Thank you. Stuart Waldman, I'm president of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, VICA. We're advocates for the San Fernando Valley. We are working with neighborhood councils, community groups, nonprofits, chambers of commerce, homeowners associations, and residents associations to ensure that the San Fernando Valley, to ensure that the Valley has adequate representation and our communities are kept whole. And now I'm going to pass it over to Kirk.
Right, thank you. So many organizations will engage in this process. Our organizations are just a sample of the groups across the county that the commission will need to reach out to. There are other organizations and alliances, including the People's Bloc, that plan to provide input to the commission and support this process. We have a range of experience and involvement in the redistricting process. Some organizations have been involved with the redistricting from decades, and then while other organizations are more recently involved and mobilized to engage. Some organizations and community members will be learning about the engaging in this process for the very first time, and part of the commission's work is to reach out and to engage these first-time participants. To support the commission in its work, we would be interested in regular bi-weekly or either monthly meetings with you all in the commission's working group on outreach to help create and carry out the commission's outreach plan. We would also be happy to brainstorm additional organizations and communities that the commission can engage with. I'm gonna pass it to Jackie.
Thank you, Kirk. Commissioners, I would like to share that each representing organization here today is currently preparing internally and among our respective communities to engage them in this process. We are using this time to finalize our plans, to start to educate our communities about redistricting, and to roll out tools and resources that will support them in participating in this important work. We are also assessing our capacity, the resources that are needed to engage the community. And we realize that we need more time to prepare our communities so that they are able to provide meaningful input to you, to the commission, particularly on communities of interest. So having said that, we would really appreciate that you reconsider a different format on the public hearings and perhaps separate the meetings to 2 different dates, so that the meetings are not too long happening on the same day. And more importantly, we would request that you push the start of the public hearings on community of interest to a further date. I do know that the state's hearings on communities of interest don't actually begin until June. And this way, it would really help us. It would really help our communities, and also it would help you in really getting meaningful information from the public throughout this process. So I will give the mic back to Margot to go next, and thank you so much.
Okay, we're looking at what worked and what didn't work in past cycles. In the past, as you're well aware, the supervisors chose their own districts with the help of an advisory committee. This is the first time that an independent commission is leading the process and drawing and enacting the maps. We acknowledge that this is the first LA County Commission. Its importance is in being independent, and the commissioners are to lead in this process. It is a true community-led redistricting effort that puts communities in the driver's seat. We are hoping to work directly with you, the commissioners. We also would request that you look at providing time to hold additional hearings in the fall after the draft maps have been published, because the amount of interest at that time and the number of people who are likely to want to put in their opinions will be very large. And we will be also sending along a detailed list of lessons learned from the 2011 process that was compiled from the Naleo organization. Stephen?
Thank you, Margot. And, I would just end in terms of lessons learned from last cycle are, again, I would concur with what Margot said, is more hearings post draft maps. Once a map is out, that is when the communities will be even out in stronger force. Last cycle, which was a very controversial cycle, there was a big issue of whether or not to add a second Latino district into LA County. And that issue, that led to hundreds, perhaps even thousands of people to come physically to the Han building to testify. They had 3 overflow rooms to those 2 hearings to talk about that issue from all sides. So this, as you prepare your schedule, it is important to have more hearings after draft maps are out, and just understand that you're going to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people coming to talk to you and can give you their opinions. And so, you need to take your time if you want to have an inclusive, open, transparent process. The last thing I would also add, as you start your thought process about planning hearings, is to stop planning about community outreach by current board district. The current board districts are going to be edited by you, potentially radically or not, but the way you should start thinking about the county in terms of regions of the county as you start picking locations or regions to focus, either for live in-person meetings or for remote regional focuses. The current lines are, are old shapes. They're architecture from a couple of decades ago. The county is, different now compared to decades ago. So I ask that, you start considering a regional focus, not as a current district focus. Start thinking that you are going to, these are not what's going to be there after your work is completed. So with that, I will focus towards, I think we're all open for a question and answer from any of the commissioners, and thank you.
Invite any of the commissioners who have questions to turn on your video and raise your hand, and Ty will call on you.
If there are clarifying questions right now before we take a public comment from the commission.
So we have a couple hands. So we have Commissioner Franklin, then Commissioner Orpanela Sugura, and then Commissioner Wong.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for participating and coming and providing this critical information. I have a couple of questions, and my concern is concerning the outreach to the minority communities of color, particularly African-American communities, and utilizing the faith-based and the church communities to do that. I want to thank Jacqueline Cotto for her tremendous work of doing outreach into the community. But Kirk Samuels from Community Coalition. Community Coalition has done outstanding advocacy and outreach work within the community, particularly of South Los Angeles. That being the case, what are some of the strategies, maybe not right now, but to think about some of the strategies that you can provide information to the commission on reaching those populations that do not normally get involved in advocacy and community engagement. So how will you, or not you, but how would the coalition, and particularly community coalition, do an out-of-the-box outreach to faith-based organizations, new faith-based organizations, those that you have not normally been outreaching to inform the community, educate the community regarding redistricting and getting their involvement?
Well, first of all, Commissioner Franklin, thank you. That was a great question. So what we're doing, as you know, as I said earlier, Community Coalition, we're co-leads of the People's Block, which is a redistricting alliance that we created with the Advancement Project. Right now, we're at about 30 organizations across the county, all focused on solidarity mapping and making sure that this redistricting process is inclusive with everybody. Starting last year, we began outreaching to faith-based organizations and groups in South Los Angeles, and we have a collection of about 27 that we've been in contact with, where we were talking to them about the COVID impacts in the community and how we can assist them, starting last year when the meal program came out for the seniors. So this is a list of faith groups that we're continuing to outreach to and speak with in the redistricting process, and our goal is to on-ramp them into the People's Block so they can be included in the political education and the data mapping trainings that we're doing with community members.
So next we have Commissioner Orpanela Segura, then Commissioner Wong and Commissioner Morales.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your information and for being with us today. I have a couple of questions, so I'll space them out. I didn't write who, but there was a request to hold our, I guess, hearings in a different format. So I wanted to see what the coalition had as suggestions. My second question is, during the last redistricting, how many hearings post-map were held? And my last question is, I'm curious to see how the coalition is going to reach out to communities who don't have access to technology, since right now, a lot of the outreach is taking place virtually. Thank you so much.
I can briefly speak on, I was the one who brought up the recommendation about perhaps splitting the public hearings into different dates. And so we are concerned about community members not having, we don't have right now the capacity to start the COI trainings for them. So we need more ample time to train the community on what is a community of interest in itself. And so we feel that the hearings that are coming are really leaving us with not enough time. And we also are being very cognizant about those hearings, both having them on the same day, of how long that can be. And we know that from the census work and from our community engagement and just knowing our own communities that we have parents that have families that work late, that have all day, that have kids that come home and have dinner. And so it could be a very long day for a family member to come into a hearing that, one, they're not prepared for, and two, they're too long. So splitting them is a recommendation that we're having. And secondly, really pushing the COI hearings to a later date, perhaps start in June instead of May, would give us more time to prepare the community. We have provided the state with a set of recommendations of how to do outreach to community, how to hold community of interest. And so we are, as the community groups, the organizations here, we are prepping to send and provide something in writing to the commission here in LA County so that you can have something in writing to follow through more clearly listed.
Regarding your question about how many hearings last cycle, I think I would have to look it up. I want two, I believe I recall two, one primary though, where there was overflow into 2 rooms at the Han building. And this was a hearing in the middle of the day. It was a long day. And, so, it was a packed couple of rooms, but it was also in a political process. As if you are not aware, previously the Board of Supervisors had an advisory commission. They did most of the legwork. They drafted a initial draft plan, and they sent it to the Board of Supervisors. Then the Board of Supervisors had one hearing, and I at least one. I do think we should just double check how many. But it might have been 2. I do ask we probably got to look that up. But it was packed. It was an overflow, middle of the day, and a political process. So, so I don't know. It was legal, but it was like also done at the last minute too, comparatively. My opinion. And then you had a third question.
I can answer the third question regarding talking to communities with limited technology. I work for the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, CHIRLA, and throughout this pandemic, our work hasn't stopped. We drove programs throughout the pandemic called the DRIVE program, which is an immigrant relief program for undocumented communities that didn't receive any assistance through the federal government. And we built a list of a lot of community members that have been receiving the help. We also have domestic workers that are part of our membership, typically folks that are not voters or are not invited into this process. And we reach out to them through a series of different methods. We have access to a call center that we can use virtually. Our call center can drive over 2,000 calls to community members in one day. And we plan on hiring call center operators to invite community members by giving them a call to participate in this process and integrate them into our organizing that is happening year round and give them community education workshops. We're going to do like redistricting 101, similar to the redistricting commission meeting that you did last time, and then invite them and walking them through the workshop, talking to them in their language. We have already been doing this introductory trainings, and we plan on doing it throughout the rest of the year. And with more time, it would be more flexibility for us to bridge the technology gaps that we're currently facing and that we have been facing even before the pandemic.
So the next commissioner is Commissioner Wong. Then we have Commissioner Morales, Commissioner Zaira Soto, and Commissioner Stetcher.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, actually, it's more some comments or kind of responses. I really appreciate, all of your participation. It's really great to see such a wide range and diverse groups willing to, spend their Wednesday evening with us. And also, I know that you've been participating, some of you from the very beginning. And so, I really am grateful and happy to and look forward to working with you. I guess you had mentioned that there's a lot of groups, that you know of that are interested in working also with us. So I would ask that you would add them to, send the names and get the word out, because we are trying to get the word out as well. So if you could send any names of any groups, we have a growing list for our outreach list. That would be very helpful for us. And also, and I think Karen, you had mentioned that you're hosting community forums and town halls, especially in language. That is also another way that you could help us get the word out, because we are limited in how many public hearings we can do, given the tight timeline of all of this. And so we would rely on some of your groups to do that, especially for doing the in language. I think, for the limited English speaking populations, I think, some of us would be happy to come out and help out and speak if you organized it. So I just want you to know that, we are happy to work with you and look forward to working more with you, and would love more ideas about how we can get more people involved. So thank you.
Commissioner Morales, then Commissioner Zaira Soto, and Commissioner Stetcher.
I want to thank all the organizations that have come to present here today and just giving us a sense of who you are, what you do, and where you're at. It's super helpful, and we like to see this as a partnership and being able to engage community members in that regard. My question was specifically for Stephen Ochoa from MALDEF regarding regional focus. Just getting a sense of what's your definition of a regional focus. We can, we tried to add a little bit of order in terms of focusing by supervisorial district, but I would love to kind of get a better sense of what you mean by that.
Sure. And first, and let me just going back to the previous question, I looked up in my notes. I found I have one hearing last cycle on September 6, 2001 for before the supervisors. So one hearing before they approved. Second, regional focus. Very simply, just think about Los Angeles County, right? There's a San Gabriel Valley, there's a San Fernando Valley, there's a South Los Angeles, South LA, there's kind of the Whittier, Norwalk region, there's a downtown central core, that's what I'm saying.
West side.
When I say regions, I mean that those are, you talk to a resident of Los Angeles County, you say, oh, what region are you focusing on? That's what I mean.
Thank you.
We have Commissioner Snyder Soto, then Commissioner Stetcher, and Co-Chair Williams.
Good evening, all, and thank you so much for your influx of just enthusiasm for redistricting and for all the work you've done so far. I'm certainly interested in exploring and discussing with the other commissioners that are part of the outreach ad hoc committee this idea about maybe having joint monthly meetings to develop or reinforce our outreach plan. So looking forward to that discussion. I'm wondering, I think as I think about the last few years and the increase in youth or engagement by young people in politics, elections, and so forth, if we have groups here that are focusing or have youth or young adults as a population that you are focusing in on.
Yeah, I can speak to that really briefly, Commissioner Soto. We are actually presenting to the Mayor's Youth City Council in a week or so. They are a really eager youth council that are engaged in civic engagement and in the political world. Definitely the youth are a group that was very active during our census work and our census outreach. And I think that's a population that, we internally have been discussing on how to tap into them as being trusted messengers. So we're starting with the Mayor's Youth Council, and we'll see where that goes.
And just to add, Commissioner, the People's Walk does include organizations that have an explicit focus on youth, such as Inner City Struggle on the East Side and Power California that has a county-wide focus. And there are so many other orgs. Those are just the two that come to my mind right now, top of mind. But they have been working with youth throughout the years in using an integrated voter engagement strategy. So meaning, how do we keep engaging them in between elections, in between these cycles? So they're already doing the work, much like Chirla is also doing these trainings. So there's quite a few of them, and we'd love to introduce them to you as well.
Commissioner Stetcher, then Co-Chair Williams, and then Co-Chair Maeda.
So sorry, I was on mute. I was actually going to throw in one more question, and it doesn't have to be like a list of, but I'm wondering if any of you have in your organizations collected or have a sense of where we might find sort of history of communities that have been historically excluded from the redistricting process that we might be able to access. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Stetcher.
Thank you. I'm just thrilled to have
these organizations interested and engaged in this process and interested in collaborating with us, because I don't think there's any way we could do our job effectively without doubling, tripling, quadrupling the impact of our efforts through groups like yours. And I think my comment sort of follows up on what Commissioner Soto said, and that's what we could benefit from, in addition to pointing out where our procedures don't meet the needs of the community, like meeting Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m., specific recommendations for what would better meet the needs of the community. I mean, we meet at this awkward time because many of us have jobs and families, and it's the only time we could find that was free. So I would ask for collaborative engagement with our working group and recommendations for alternatives that might better meet the needs of people who are represented by your organizations and others.
Thank you, Commissioner Stetcher. I think that's a great idea. I know during our presentation, we talked about potentially moving back some of the formal communities of interest hearings later into the summer. If our groups can be helpful in kind of brainstorming a specific schedule that we think would better accommodate, you know, the diversity of communities across the county, we'd be happy to come up with a concrete schedule with you all as well.
Co-Chair Williams, then Co-Chair Maeda.
Okay, I just want to thank you for your participation and your support of our efforts, and also for representing the communities. And I'm really impressed by who you are and what you do. I had a question regarding when we talk about communities of interest. Where does the people who are unhoused, how is there outreach, or who is there a voice, or is there groups that are represented there?
Bro, Stephen, I see your hand. I'll go after you.
All I was going to say on the census count, at least, the census undertakes a homeless count, and they do basically count them where they spend a weekend, and or at least that was the old pre-COVID process. They would spend a weekend and they would go and count them. They would count them where they were. In terms of advocacy, maybe Kirk would probably is the better.
Something that we are working on is one of the organizations within the People's Block is the LA CAN, which is part of the Black Census Redistricting Hub. And with them, we're doing focus groups. One of the focus groups we're doing is actually on Skid Row. We have a high concentration of homeless people. So we want to talk to them, actually get them involved in the redistricting process as well.
Thank you.
Co-Chair Maeda.
So I will have a comment, but I wanted to pause and see if there's any public comments or questions.
There are currently no public comments.
Okay. So this is truly an impressive gathering of talent, power, influence, institutional memory, and community representation. And I totally agree with Commissioner Stetcher. We could not do our job as effectively without help from you folks, as well as other organizations that someone mentioned are also interested in the redistricting area. Thank you for your engagement. I recognize many of you from past meetings. Your written statements and comments that we've received in the past, ranging from our outreach efforts, our bylaws, everything else has been extremely important and informative. I urge you to keep those coming. We know we got one just a couple of days ago that we're reviewing as well. We are looking for ways to partner with groups as a coalition or as an entire group, but also individually, particularly in the areas where we're falling down, where we can be doing better. So we are certainly looking for opportunities to partner and engage with you. And as you have these kind of proposals where we have concrete ways in which we can connect, please do share those with us. Ideally in a form where we don't have to have 1 or 2 minutes at a time, but in a written form would be great, or in terms of meetings with the outreach group. So we're really looking forward to that. But thank you so much for your time and your very professional, short presentations, introductions. That was actually very, very helpful, as well as the written component that we got a couple of days ago. Do other commissioners have any other comments? So we've gone over the amount of time I've allotted for this, which is fine because it's been extremely helpful, but we do have other important items on the agenda. Do any of the commissioners have any other final comments or questions? And do any of the members of the groups have any final things that you would like to say that you haven't already let us know? Okay, thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate it. Feel free to stick around. I'm sure some of you will. And we look forward to working with you all.
Thank you so much, commissioners. Likewise.
Thank you all.
All right. I believe the next item is the working group, ad hoc working group updates. The first group we want to hear from is the legislation and other redistrict commissions working group, and I'll recognize now the lead, Commissioner Holtzman.
Well, thank you, Co-Chair Maeda. I'm going for efficiency tonight. I'm going to talk about a couple of positions, some positions that I think we should adopt. These positions will not have anything in them referring specific proposals that are out there. We're not going to reference specific bill. We're not going to reference a specific possible regulation that's been proposed. We're not, the positions don't reference any litigation, any lawsuits, but we can use them in those contexts if we have them. The idea is to adopt positions, say what we want, and then move forward from there. The chairs, as you know, have the authority to speak for the commission, and if we adopt positions, they can use those positions in speaking for the commission. So let's do this in in very, very short order. Well, how does it go, Chair Maeda? There's a presentation from the committee and clarifying questions from the commission, and then public comments?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to make the presentation from the ad hoc very, very, very brief. You have read, I imagine, the proposed positions. You have read, I imagine, the bullet points suggesting rationales for those proposed positions. And I could put them all up on screen, but I think you've already read them. If there are questions and you'd like me to put them up on screen, I will. Let's just consider that my presentation.
Are there clarifying questions from the commission? So one question, Commissioner Holtzman, is you will be, or after we have public comment and further discussion, you will be entertaining a motion individually on R1, R2, R3, correct?
Yeah, I think the plan is for me to make the motion as the work group chair, and have one other member of the work group, and that's Commissioner Stetcher. And I think the plan is for him to second the motions as I make them, and then we'll take each one individually.
If I may, just for clarification, Commissioner Holtzman, it might be good if you shared the screen so the public who may not know what R1, R2, R3 is, they could follow along.
Happy to.
Also remember, we have individuals who are calling in. Not all of them have visual access. So they may need a little bit of a reference point.
Okay, can you see R1 on the screen right now? Yes, no, yes.
Yes.
Okay, I put it up there. And then I can flip right over to the bullet points if need be. So R1, R2. Public comment then?
So there are currently no public comments on this agenda item.
Okay, then to make things go, I will, you can see that I deleted the language about San Diego County. Before I go on, I just wanted to say I got a call from the chair of the San Diego County Independent Redistricting Commission today, and they've set up an ad hoc to look at these things. And their ad hoc doesn't want there to be an impression that they're being pressured by our commission to do anything. So I'm not going to include that language in the motions. So to start off, I move that we adopt the positions shown in R1 and without the language about the San Diego Independent Redistricting Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now, this position would give us 20 more days to get out a draft map or draft maps if we need it. Hopefully we won't need it, but this position is to have on our back pocket to say, look, we're happy to rush our job, but we would rather have the time to do our job well. And I also should point out, in terms of the presentations we just heard, the law says we're supposed to conduct at least 2 public hearings over a period of however many days. This would change it from 30 to 10. We could hold a hearing every day in those 10 days, or even before, if we have a draft map and can do it. And that might be a way to reach out to more people. But this position is just to give us a cushion that it looks like we may need because census data are delayed.
Commissioner Holtzman, we have a couple hands from the commissioners. So we have Commissioner Obregon, then Co-Chair Maeda, and then Commissioner Wong.
Yeah, my concern, because from all the people that were advocating for the groups that we just heard, they seem to think that we should present our draft maps and then do more of the outreach and let them comment. I was hearing that a lot from many of them. So that's my concern. I'm not sure what else to say from that, but that was a concern from what they were explaining.
Anyhow, taking this position, I'm sorry, Commissioner Obregon, are you still at the beach? I can't see you.
Well, I tried to start the video, but it said let me see. The host has asked you to start.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Okay. Nice to see you again.
My bad.
I just wanted to say that in terms of that concern, adopting this position would not preclude us from holding additional hearings earlier. This is just to use if we need it. Commissioner Wong?
Actually, I was ahead, but
hey, I'm sorry.
That's okay. To address Commissioner Obregon's comment, we heard the groups loud and clear. We do intend and hope and intend to have more than the minimum required public hearings, but Commissioner Holtzman is correct. We can hold many more if we want to. Nothing in this change precludes that, but this does give us flexibility if we need a few additional days to put together the map before we go out with it to do that. No one really benefits from sort of a map that isn't well thought out because we're just running out of time. We just have to get something out. That's not sensible public policy, I don't think. So that's why we're doing this. If we can provide more time, if we can provide more hearings, we will do it. But we're being put in a very, very difficult spot with the delays, the repeated delays in the census, and that's why we're proposing this.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, my question is, and I apologize, perhaps I don't quite understand what these resolutions are. So, because this is amending the election code, is this asking that we, I don't even know if we asked the board or who, is this actually to create a bill to amend the elections code, to ask for this and then to see if we could get it changed? Because if it's part of the election code, we don't have the authority to amend it.
Yes, I get that. You get that. You're right about that. That's why we're advocating amending the elections code. We're not going to say we're going to do it ourselves.
Right.
But,
Oh, okay.
So the change that's up there on the screen, you can see it's in the standard strikeout underline format to strike out 30 and put in 10. And that can happen in a bill, maybe this SB 594 that's going to the legislature now, or any other bill that may happen to address this issue. So, that would be willing to include that amendment.
So the idea then we would support a specific, this specific language. Hopefully we could get in a bill, and then we would push for that bill, I guess, like lobby for that bill, right? And
yeah, or just register our support for that bill, because we have a position. You don't have to come back to the this commission for approval to support a bill. We have a position supporting that change, and that's the change.
Okay, it's just that the timing is kind of tricky, when you have a bill and when you're pushing this as a legislature. I don't even know if we would be able to get it passed and signed in time for it to be relevant.
Well,
to our...
I'll tell you one thing. Well, first of all, that SB 594 is an urgency bill that would take effect immediately. It's for that reason it requires two-thirds vote, so that speeds up the timeline in the legislature. But the timing concerns are a big part of the reason why the county has that legislative program with a list of its positions already approved that I was talking about. It's much easier to move if you have positions already approved. I mean, my professional field is air quality. I was just very impressed. They have like almost 2 full pages of positions about air quality, that they can use to support or oppose bills as they come forward. Anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stetcher, then Co-Chair Maeda.
Thanks. I was just going to try to explain again that what these represent are statements of the sentiments of our commission that can be used to advocate for changes in the law should it be feasible to make our job, allow us to do our job better. So Commissioner Holtzman and others have looked at what's possible, and there are a number of places where changes might happen. And there are many other people in the state who are aware of these constraints and are taking actions to try to lessen them. So there is, as Commissioner Holtzman mentioned, a Senate bill, an emergency Senate bill currently being considered that is a place where these changes might be made. But what we're doing here by adopting the resolutions is empowering the co-chairs, when speaking on our behalf, to lend our support towards whichever of these changes might develop enough support to make its way through.
Co-Chair Maeda, then Commissioner Morales.
2 comments. So one is and this response to Commissioner Wong and perhaps others as well. By having these positions available, we don't bind ourselves to saying we want to, support bill A, B, whatever, because if it turns out that bill's renumbered or someone else comes out with a different legislation that does the same thing, you don't want to have to keep coming back to the commission to get specific approval. So we have these very discrete proposals that then allow us to glom onto particular pieces of legislation that are moving or whatever. It provides flexibility if we have those positions. Second thing, though, is in striking out the San Diego language, that doesn't, my question, I guess, was you don't intend that to preclude us from still, assuming this passes, to go to San Diego and say, you guys want the same thing? Or if you want the same thing, please join us, we'll join you, etc. Right?
Yeah, there will certainly be communication between the 2 ad hocs.
Great.
Commissioner Morales.
Yeah, so I just had a little bit of a question in terms of if we take these positions, we may not be bound to a particular bill, but we are bound by our word. And so what this actually to me, it sounds like we would have to make sure that we are available, right? And make ourselves available in whatever way, shape, or form we can to make sure we have these hearings in a short amount of time, and any additional hearings that we're organizing and putting together, availability and commitment. And so I just want to be clear that if we take these positions, that is exactly what we're going to be setting out to do. If this gets passed through the legislature, if this gets signed at the end of the day and moves forward.
All right. Shall we vote?
Is there any other comments or questions from the commissioner?
If I may also just suggest, this time easement is really only needed this year because of the pandemic and the postponement in the census data. So there would be the possibility of asking for just the change for this year, and they could go back to the original legislation for subsequent years, to just keep that in mind.
Commissioner Obregon.
Yeah, my question is, after the commission draws a draft map, do we have an idea of what date we're looking at for that draft map? Are we looking at June 30th? Are we, I'm just wondering what date we envision with that.
I'll take a stab at answering that. Right now, we don't have a specific date by which we think we can have a draft map. It all depends on when we get A, the public input we need, and B, the actual data we need to use to draw such a map. So we're in this particular proposed position, we're not taking a position on when we should draw the draft map. We're just saying we need a little more, perhaps a little more time to do it.
If I may, we're working on a draft Gantt chart on the timeline for the ad hoc working group for demography. And the latest that this group would post the maps would be November 1st, and would have to have the 2 public hearings by November 8th through December 1st to do within 30 days in order to meet the December 15th deadline. And that's the challenge.
And again, to adopt this position, we don't need to go through all that at this point.
Yeah, but that's a time crunch. We're not talking.
That's the time frame we saw that you're working with.
Any Commissioner Setcher? You withdraw. Any other questions, comments? Shall we call the question? Let's have a roll call vote on the motion to approve R1.
I would now take roll call. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Priyashidara?
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher?
Yes.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong?
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman?
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza?
Aye.
Commissioner Apollonio Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon?
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura?
Yes.
Commissioner Haile Soto?
Yes.
And Commissioner Saida Soto?
No.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to R2. I move that this commission adopt the position stated in R2. I don't think we need the sentence that's in parentheses there about the California State Supreme Court ruling. So, and this just to, first of all, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to strike that out for clarity. In this case, there may be a bill that actually will just change the map adoption deadline for local redistricting to a specific date instead of having it based on a formula. Right now, based on the formula in the California Supreme Court ruling that gave the state redistricting commission an extension to December 15th, 2021, they put in a formula saying you can get more of an extension if the census data come to you after July 31st. Well, right now, the official census transmittal date for the data that we need, the public law 94-171 data, it has been moved to September 30th. So between September 30th and July 31st, that's an extra 61 days, which means that the CCRC could have until Valentine's Day to do its work. And it just seems fair that we should have the same amount of time as the State Redistricting Commission. So that's why the working group has proposed that we advocate Valentine's Day as our drop dead deadline. Again, we don't have to take all that time and might not need to. So there you have it.
Any questions or comments from the commission?
Commissioner Morales?
Yeah, I just had a question on this one in particular, because what does that mean for local elections? And I guess, again, it goes back, this is all kind of a theoretical practice that we're doing here until there's a bill that is passed. But this shrinks the amount of time that folks have to, submit their candidacy. This has, I've just, what happened in the past with the redistricting for the county in terms of a special election that would have to have, would this create kind of a domino effect or some problems for local municipalities?
Let's see. Local municipalities would probably have the same map adoption deadline. This would be for basically all county redistricting as well as city and municipality redistricting. You're right, Commissioner Morales. Right. If we advocate this and the legislature makes it so, there would be a cascading effect. They would have to push the primary election to a later date. But that's under consideration right now. We've seen that in correspondence we've received. So they could do that. This is not as extreme as the pushing back of the primary date wouldn't be as extreme as as we discussed a couple of times ago. It wouldn't need to be pushed back to Labor Day or around then. It could be done in plenty of time for the results to be verified, certified, ballots to be printed and sent to people abroad in time for the general election. Perhaps this is about as far as we could push it anyway. Yeah, there would be a little cascade, but again, this would be setting a marker, so to speak, saying we advocate this date. Doesn't mean that we couldn't support an earlier date for the map adoption deadline, but this is basically asking for the same treatment as it looked like the Supreme Court gave the State Commission.
Co-Chair Maeda?
So what's going on for this one is the recognition that we may need more time. Working group previously thought about some kind of legislation or proposal where we would say the primary should be pushed back to such and such a date, Labor Day or some other date. Working backwards from that gives us a couple more months, that kind of thing. And then we decided, well, we shouldn't advocate for changing the primary date. Let's just say this is how much time we need. And that date coincides with the date that the state group is going to do for all the other districts. So we should have the same privileges as they get. Let's have that as the date. And then no one is going to simply allow us to have that date without also changing the primary date, because they know that they're tied together. But we have to decide what that, someone else could decide what that primary date is. We're just saying this is the date that we can live with, that we'd like to have as much time as possible to do the good map. If we don't use it, great, that's even more time. But at least that's one way to set a marker. And it seemed to be appropriate to do it on the same date as the State Commission is going to do it.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes, is the LA City district or commission the same date as ours, or is it the same as the state?
The LA City is bound by local redistricting law as well. I know the date, I could look it up right now, the date that we have to use comes from, you can actually see the section of law down below, this section of law here. The current deadline for drawing the map comes from formulas in this section of law, Elections Code 21501. I know that section of law applies to counties, all counties throughout the state. I'm not entirely sure that it's also for cities, charter cities. So
if I could,
there you have it. I don't know where to go with that, except to tell you that I'm not sure.
If I could just jump in quickly on this, for cities that are general law cities, their deadline for redistricting is going to be around April 15th, because it is based on their next election. And for general law cities, that's going to be in November. Most general law cities switched to have their elections coincide in November. Many charter cities also made that switch based on a state law that there was a dispute about whether it applied to charter cities or not. But that was resolved. So you will have some charter cities, of LA is one, that have the power, to set their election dates at different times. So, for example, I know that Pasadena has the same deadline we do because they have a primary in June. I don't know off the top of my head LA's primary, if they have a primary. So it's possible that it's the same as ours. It's possible that it's different. I don't know off the top of my head.
But they seem to have more time than us, but okay. And just another question. Again, this is in case there's a bill and we want to include it in some bill to try to change it, right? Because the state already has that because the Supreme Court already gave them that date. But we don't, unfortunately, have a lawsuit that gave us this, so we have to include it in a bill, right?
Pretty much would be the easier way to go about it.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Shidaran?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you to Commissioner Holtzman and Commissioner Stetcher for kind of working through this jigsaw puzzle and trying to figure out, what we should ask for in order to create the space to do as good a job as we can. I think, and I can see how it's not easy, so thank you. I think one thing I just want to make sure of is if legislation came to pass that gave us the February 14th deadline, I assume then that we no longer need R1, right? So we're approving kind of an assortment of tools, or approving taking a position of support for an assortment of tools should they arrive, should they kind of make some legislative progress and become possible. I just want to sort of say, I think we need to commit that if we get an extension to February 14th, we can revert back to the period of 30 days between the hearings, between the minimal two hearings, right? We no longer need that sort of that 10-day compression is really just because we're concerned about not having enough time. When you whittle out the days of all of the process required to have, we have 42 seconds to put together a reasonable map
for people to respond to. So anyway, I just wanted to sort of say that I imagine we're all on the same page on that, but.
Yeah, we're on the same page on that, but thank you for stating it, because now we can point to what you just said.
Any other comments, questions from the commission? Are we ready to call the question on R2? Let's do that, Ty.
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Aye.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Aye.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpinella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Haile Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Saira Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Shidara.
Yeah.
Motion passes.
All right, again, thank you, commissioners. Let's take a look at R3. As I referenced when we were talking about the last one, there are proposals to push back the primary day to give local redistricting commissions more space to do their job well. And that's based on the current formula that's in law, which is keyed to the primary date. So this proposal would simply say, we support the idea of postponing the primary day, to give, as a method of allowing more time for redistricting, if it wouldn't interfere with proper administration of the general election, which our old proposal may very well have, the one to make Labor Day a holiday and make it the primary day. We've forgot about that. Anyway, so this is just to generally support the discussions that are going on. You may have seen a table that Common Cause prepared, which had consequences of moving the primary day to different dates. None of them were very long in terms of postponing the primary date, but it'd be nice to just say that we support the concept as another way of helping us. So that's what the work group is recommending. So I move that we adopt the position stated in R3. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian.
Any questions, comments from the commission on R3?
Commissioner Morales.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what is reasonable and what is not reasonable. Like if it's postponing by a couple of weeks is one thing, but postponing for a number of months is another. We've already seen when there's special elections, what you get is voter fatigue. And so your turnout is much lower than what you would normally have. Mm-hmm. I don't know what folks consider a friendly amendment of a reasonable time frame and not something that is indefinite.
Well, Commissioner Morales, would you read the last clause of the proposed position? I think there's something in there which would prevent our position from interfering with the proper administration of the general election, which sets a limit on how far back the primary day could be pushed. Does that satisfy your concern?
I would like to know what that limit is.
Well, for that, we'd probably have to turn to the county registrar. He indicated that Labor Day was too far. The proposals that are out there right now are pretty much all later dates in June. But it might slide over into July. One hates to have a primary election over the summer because people are away, but people now know how to vote by mail ballots. So anyway, that's the best I can tell you.
Well, and I think we have to remember that this would only happen if we could muster support from a majority of the legislature to make these kinds of changes. And there would be plenty of advocates for reasonable timelines. So I think in context, this would only, these changes would only go into effect in a way that would not undermine the a just election.
And for those of you who don't know, the county registrars have a very powerful lobbying association called the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials that have strong sway over what the legislature does with regards to election procedures, timing, equipment, et cetera. And of course, they would push back against anything like Commissioner Stetcher says. That's unreasonable.
Co-Chair Maeda?
So I have a question for Commissioner Morales, because maybe there's something I don't understand. This is the second time you mentioned special elections. How do special elections factor into this? This doesn't require a special election.
No, I did not mention special election here. That was in a previous suggestion or consideration. What I'm talking about here is if you push back the primary closer to the November election,
yes,
and you get voter fatigue. We've seen this, look at in Los Angeles with 3 special elections in one congressional district, right, an assembly election happening all within a couple of months. So what I'm trying to get at and trying to get a sense from Commissioner Holtzman is to try to understand what is that reasonable time frame. And what I'm getting is September Labor Day. Is this a reasonable time frame?
It's unreasonable.
Unreasonable. And so that's what I'm getting at. We want folks, to vote consciously with enough time, and then their consideration, to move into the next election before you jump into another election.
Okay.
So there's no special election here.
Okay. But I understand the reference to a special election causing fatigue. And so you don't want the same kind of thing happen, which might happen if it was an October primary and November general, which I get. But I think Commissioner Stetcher and Commissioner Holtzman are right that nothing like this is going to happen, without the clerks and the legislature saying this makes sense to us. And so there will not be an election in October or anything remotely like that. But this allows us the flexibility to say, so we don't have to say, we want to do it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 10 days, it doesn't lock us in. We want just to have more time, push it back. And we may not even ever have to invoke this thing, but we may. This may be the best we can do to get 10 days, whatever.
Right. And conversely, they can point to us and say the Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission agrees with us. So that's what I'm saying is we are creating political space for these decisions to be made. Ideally, yes, it helps us, but is that ideal for the voters? And that's my,
I understand.
But I will, that's all I'll say right now.
Any other comments, Ty?
So there are no other questions from the commissioners, but we have a couple comments from the public, but it is public comment period. It is closed for this agenda item, but co-chairs, it is up to you if you would like me to read it out.
Commissioner Holtzman, are you were invoked in one of these comments specifically? Would you like to respond to that?
Was that the written comment that was posted to that was whatever? Yeah, go ahead and read it. No, actually, I could probably respond to it because I think I know what it is. Sure. Let's hear it. Well, okay, let's hear them.
So we have 2 comments from the public. From Gail Stewart. You just got through hearing groups suggest more public hearing, and now you want to lower the hearing in a short amount of time. Another comment from Gail Stewart. Commissioner Holtzman stated in the last meeting that this primary election subject was dropped.
Okay. I saw that also on the web forum posted comment. Ms. Stewart, the thing that we dropped was that proposal to make the primary day on on Labor Day, a way to make, and at the same time, obviously, that would make the primary day a holiday. That was the thing we dropped, and which I've already called unreasonable several times tonight. So yes, I did say we were dropping that proposal, but I didn't say we were dropping the idea of moving the primary date back a little bit, not so much. So that's my response to that comment.
Is there any other commissioner discussion before we vote on this R3? Seeing none, let's take the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Cyrus Soto.
Just ask a question as I process Commissioner Monales' concern as well. Would it be possible for us to insert a no later than date or statement that I think addresses our concern about the possibility of this being extended too long?
Well, again, we have a protection against it being pushed back too long in the proposed position, the last clause. We don't want to interfere with the general election. And for us to come up with a no later than date on the fly right now, I think this would be too difficult to do. We could, that would take back and forth with the clerks and the registrars just to see what they think. And like we said, we're sure to hear from them when the postponement gets to the legislature, as it likely will. There's already proposals to do it.
So we have Co-Chair Williams, your hand is up.
Yes, I had a question. In looking at R2 and R3, isn't the result the same, even though we may not be saying, we're still asking them to, isn't the result still postponing the primary election day if we were able to set our map adoption deadline to February 14th? Doesn't that still move the primary election day? Doesn't it impact?
Well, Coach William, that's a big if. You're right. If the map deadline is set at February 14th, primary election day would doubtlessly be moved. But R3, we're proposing R3 just in case it's not, just in case the existing formula for map adoption deadline stays in force, isn't changed. And that calculates the map adoption deadline based on the primary date. So this is kind of like it is like a backup R2, or that would be another way of accomplishing the goal if we can't do it by just writing in a new date.
Okay, I guess I'm kind of toying with this sort of, it has some redundancy in it, well.
I understand. Yeah, it's all about getting us more time.
Right, right.
And there's different ways of doing it. So it's all about, having a couple of different ways of doing it in our pocket to use.
Okay.
Commissioner Obregon, you have your hand up.
Yes. If we adopt the map on February 14th, why are we assuming that the primary can't be accomplished on June 7th? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, so that sort of goes back to the last resolution, the last position. And the answer to the question is that the clerks and elections officials would want more time to integrate the districts into their databases, tell people which districts they have to run in based on where they live, get the petitions out to the candidates. So there's a lot that has to happen after the redistricting map is adopted before they can have an election. And the clerks and elections officials would certainly make sure they have the time to do it. And I think we know from the registrar's response to that crazy Labor Day proposal that we withdrew, that they would need more time than just June 7th if they didn't have the map before February 14th.
Any other discussion or comment by the commission? Are we ready to call the question? Seeing no other responses, Ty, why don't you go ahead and call roll on this one?
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
No.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
No.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Aye.
Commissioner Apollonio Morales.
No.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
No.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanela Segura.
No.
Commissioner Haile Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Sider Soto.
No.
Commissioner Priya Shidaran.
No.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Okay, the motion fails, but just so commissioners know, the various public interest groups are advocating postponing the primary. So we just won't have that position to support them. We have this other suggested position here, and this would only apply, this is R4, this would only apply if the primary is postponed past June 30th into July. There's just a sort of glitch in the formula that would make the map adoption deadline be only 174 days before June 30th, but now 205 days before July 1st. So moving it into July, moving the primary into July actually could cut against us. But given what's happened so far in this portion of the meeting, and given that the dates that public interest groups are advocating for the primary are all in June, and this only really is needed if the primary is moved into July. I think I'm just going to say let's not take this up tonight. And also, as you can see, R5, we said we'd only move this forward if R1 is not adopted, and we adopted the position in R1. So I'm going to say we're done with this proportion of the agenda tonight. And I thank you for your time and your attention to this work group's work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Holtzman. And if for those commissioners who want to further engage on the issue of primary dates and legislation, all that, certainly we are open. I'm sure the working group would be open to hearing your views, which have been solicited, but will continue to be open to that. Okay. The next update from the working group is Co-Chair Williams' responsibility. Co-Chair Williams.
I believe you're muted.
I believe Commissioner Williams will be introducing, Co-Chair Williams will be introducing Commissioner Sridharan.
Yeah, I'm here. My screen tends to disappear. That's what happens, and so I can't unmute. Yeah, but I'm introducing Commissioner Sridharan, who's going to discuss something that was brought to the commission at the last meeting, which is the proposal for voter polarization analysis consulting services. So I will hand it over to Commissioner Srirahan.
Thanks, Co-Chair Williams. I'll be really brief. This is the same RFP that we discussed loosely at the last meeting. We chose not to vote on it to allow more time for feedback and review. It is not substantially changed from that time. It's designed to seek services for voter polarization analysis for the county. And our hope in the timing of it is for us to receive this analysis from the hired consultant, around the same time or towards the end of when we're completing our public hearings over the summer. So our hope is just to have this input before we really take to making decisions, conceptual decisions about the future maps or the proposed maps. So that's it in a nutshell. I guess we need a motion to approve we need a motion to approve the RFP and distributing it to start discussing it, but.
I so move.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, are there clarifying questions? Ty, do we have any commissioners with questions?
Currently, there are no commissioners with their hand up, and currently also no public comments for this item.
No public comments. Okay, so are we ready for the question? Okay, can we do roll call?
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. I will now take roll call. Commissioner Dorina Wong.
So sorry. That was a little surprise. Yes.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Aye.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Aye.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Shidaran.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
And Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Gayla, you had some comments just to.
Yes, today is the last day for anyone interested in bidding on the RFP for demographic and mapping consulting services to let me know so I can compile any questions and answers from the bidders and get those out. But that bid is still out there to receive our responses. We will be issuing this RFP for the voter polarization analysis then as well. Both of them are also available through the county distribution to various vendors as well. So we'll respond. And if anyone in the public, I noticed there was one demographer who was among the panelists today, do let other demographers know about these opportunities.
Thank you, Gayla. And I just want to commend the working group and Commissioner Srirahan for all the work that they're doing on mapping and demography. Okay, so next we move.
This item was drawn with.
Now move on. Yeah, okay, thanks. Just an update from the ad hoc working group on public outreach, Commissioner Morales.
Yes, thank you very much, Co-Chair Williams. So we had our very first presentation to the faith-based organizations and community-based organizations on April 6th. It went well. We got some good feedback from folks. We were, Gayla, I'm not sure if we have a final tally of organizations or folks that were part of this.
44 who attended that particular workshop.
Yeah, so we got some great questions. We were answer the majority of those questions, which is really great. I just want to thank Commissioner Franklin, Commissioner Wong, both Commissioner Soto, Commissioner Orpanella Segura, and Co-Chair Williams for participating and really putting in some insight in terms of the presentation. So it went well folks were animated. We had a little technical glitch, but you know, Commissioner Wong is very, very strong when it comes to her presentation, her part. So you know, we're able to get through it. We do have upcoming next week, April 20th from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is the city's government agencies and educational systems presentation. And so again, we'll do it one more time. And then we will provide a report back at our next commission meeting. But more specifically, we do have to figure out, you know, we are getting a lot of requests for, you know, having the hearings and the workshop separated. We also did have a survey that was sent out to all commissioners. So we have your availability. We're going to have to be very creative. And I think we just voted in a previous resolution there, our commitment into the process. And so, you know, we have to be a little bit flexible in terms of our time. And, you know, knowing that we have a little bit more, you know, at least going in through June and July and into the summer to be able to have, you know, some of these more regional presentations. And so just a reminder, the public hearings, you know, we can have those public hearings specifically that, you know, we need a quorum of folks to be able to be participating in that. So more than 9 commissioners or 9 commissioners. The supplemental public forums, we're still exploring again, you know, time frame and availability for everybody if we are going to be exploring this in partnership with the coalition folks. Those, you know, cannot have a quorum specifically, but the information that will be provided is also going to be helping us to draft the maps once we get the information. And so that's, I believe, as much as information as I have about our report back. If there's any questions.
Any questions? I have a comment. I just want to encourage the commissioners that these workshops are for dialogue. And if you're signed up to attend, definitely there. And if you want to attend and not signed up, please check with Gayla before attending. It's important that we know the commissioners that'll be there because of the, we have some restrictions on that. So if you have any questions about it, again, check with Gayla if you're not signed up and you want to attend.
Commissioner Stetcher's hand is up.
Commissioner Stetcher.
Thank you. In an informal conversation with Gayla, I believe she said, none of these dates are fixed yet for the workshops. They're still all in flux. So I was a little confused when Co-Chair Williams said comments which just seemed to suggest we were committed to particular dates. So are we committed or not?
Okay, so Commissioner Stetcher, let me go through the next slides that will tell you what happened with what dates were being considered. And I think the other important input you heard tonight was the question of maybe we should start in June, not in May. And maybe we don't piggyback the meetings. We saw some advantages of piggybacking them in terms of themes, but it would be a lot of time. We also got feedback to do them regionally. The Senate bill requires that we hold at least one in each of the 5 supervisorial districts, which is why we were doing that. But that's sort of in the old days when you were locked into driving in your car to a specific physical site. Now that it's virtual, we're probably going to have people coming from other areas, and we can probably entertain a different configuration. But this is the result of the survey of your availability. And just stay with me while I walk you through these 3 slides. Across the top are the dates where we asked the commissioners to indicate all of the dates that you would be available to determine if we could have a quorum. I also grouped you based on the supervisorial district you are each living in right now because the Senate bill said we have to hold these in those regions. If you look at this, May 19th works. Ty is not available, but we could work around that. Holly's unavailable, but she could assign other legal counsel. Our community groups would prefer we not start in May. So I would suggest we might not start in May. We have quorums for June 2nd, the 16th of June, June 30th, and over here for June 26th. We do not have a quorum for July 7th. That's difficult. That is close to maybe the 4th of July. And we also do not have a quorum for this Saturday, July 17th. The next question I asked on the survey was, had to do with these public forums, where we just wanted to see if we could get a group of people from that supervisorial district to meet with people to get their input. And the color coding just indicates when are the dates that commissioners would be available from those particular regions, supervisorial districts. And Commissioner Holtzman's unavailable for any of them until July 17th. The Spanish speaking, we have 4 fluent Spanish speaking commissioners, and they are all available for the Saturday, June 26th date. So that's sort of exciting because we talked about doing one of these public hearings in Spanish. The third slide is sort of where we may want to think about this more. So what this basically proposes, let's not do May. You know, just it'd be easier. So one option is to take our regular meeting dates of June 9th and June 23rd and use those for having these additional public hearings. Maybe Wednesday night's not the best option, so again, we may want to revisit it. Same thing here when we did not have a quorum. And then obviously the July 17th, we could consider rescheduling that so we could get a quorum. I think the danger we were running into is an ad hoc working group, and this is sort of a no-win situation. If we extend them too much into July and August, you probably will be criticized that you're doing them when people are away on vacation. If we try to do them in June before people start going away, then it may seem like they're being, again, too rushed. So I would suggest, since these groups have offered to provide more input, that we keep working on the calendar and come back to you with some more options and maybe survey you some more based on what they think.
And can I just clarify where the issue is in terms of attendance? Public forums are designed to have no more than 7 commissioners. So when we have others showing up, that's where we get into issues around the Brown Act. So we've got hearings and we've got forums. And so what I was talking about with the public forums, the hearing, we need a quorum. So that's a little different.
Right.
Let me just piggyback on that a bit and also mention that also applies to the workshops with the upcoming one with the cities and governmental entities. So that date is set. So so to Commissioner Stetcher's comment, you know, that would be one where if somebody wanted to attend and staff wasn't aware of it, to reach out to Gayla just to ensure we're watching those numbers.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's difficult if it's a surprise when a person shows up as a commissioner. So we just need to know, we need to make sure we manage the numbers. All of these meetings we are posting, they are public meetings for anyone to come, but we wanted more of a dialogue and more of a workshop kind of a setting.
And they're recorded also.
And they're all recorded, so any commissioner can then go and listen to them. So,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I just think we need to come back with some more calendar ideas based on what you think.
Commissioner Holtzman?
I just wanted to point out as a public health person that the longer we wait to start the hearings for the specific supervisorial districts, the more chance there will be that the pandemic will have waned to the point where we could have, say, an outside hearing actually in person in each of the districts, as you know, our mandate would like to see us do. Would like to see us have in-person hearings. Just wanted to point that out. The pandemic is waning. We may get to if we wait long enough, we may get to hold some in-person hearings.
Well, and I'll also mention that Commissioner Vento has offered to see if Antelope Valley Community College could host either a hybrid workshop or public hearing up in the Antelope Valley. It would be a college campus setting, a large space. What we need are areas where we could do hybrid, where people could come in virtually or in person if the public health ordinances are lifted. If not for these first round of public hearings, definitely for the public hearings in the fall, we definitely should be looking at some kind of a hybrid model.
Commissioner Wong.
I guess I was thinking, especially because it has been recommended that we consider other days and other times. So I do like the idea of, yes, let's try to be open about it. I know weekends are horrible. Nobody wants to give up their weekends, but it is true that, for working people, it may be easier for them to do a weekend. Now, Sundays I know are not popular either, but if we can't find, we should just be really flexible, I think, and consider separating, I think, the forums from the hearings if we need to. And when I was suggesting that if some of the community groups want to organize their own town halls, and I think we should be open to participating in those too. I mean, there's different ways that we can be getting the word out and participating without, just be limited to these particular public hearings and forums. So
Yeah, I think those are all good ideas. So I think we should just do more homework on this and come back. Any other comments, input? And something else we may want to think about, I know one commissioner said the word public hearing and public forums confusing, and we sort of did that because we were pairing them. If we separate them, we may just continue calling the more informal one workshops or town hall meetings or something else.
That makes sense.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Yep. Okay, so now I'm handing off to Co-Chair Maeda and Commissioner Mendoza.
In that order?
I think Co-Chair Maeda was on mute.
Oh.
And probably Commissioner Mendoza, you could probably.
Okay, this will be very brief. The scheduled educational speakers for the next 3 meetings has not changed. You can review that, well, now or at your leisure. And also, if there's any questions or comments regarding the speakers themselves or the contents of their presentation, certainly reach out to me telephonically, electronically, however you like, or through Gala, and we'll answer any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Stetcher, you have your hand up?
Well, I was just going to ask a question about the subject of Dr. Sonnenshine's speech, but if you prefer, I can contact you outside of this context.
That would be preferable.
Very good.
Okay, so we're moving on to, are you complete? Are you done?
Yes, thank you, Co-Chair Williams. That concludes the update.
Okay, so before I go into this, I just want to again commend the working groups on all the work and time you're putting into this. There are a lot of meetings, there are many meetings and emails going on in between the commission meetings. So I just want to acknowledge you for all that you're doing to keep us moving ahead on our mission. And are there any matters not posted, any items for the future agenda for next meeting? If not, Gala, Executive Director's Report.
Okay. And if I do this expeditiously, we make it out by 9:30, which would be a record for this group.
Yep.
So let me just sort of first say that the commissioners who did the workshop on April 6th did a wonderful job. They really knew the content. They really handled themselves extremely professionally, were able to answer the questions. What I would suggest, now that we have a slide deck, that these slides are available to any of the commissioners to use to make presentations among various groups. I would encourage you, if you are invited, that you partner maybe with one of the people who've already presented at the workshops to sort of have them as backup. We would like these slides to be tested, but we want them to be used as you go out. When you feel comfortable during May or before we go into public hearings, I will arrange to have them translated into our 11 or 12 threshold languages. But they are still drafts, and I think you should use them so that we can get it as a refined packet before we do the translation. The other thing that the ad hoc working group on outreach requested is that we have some social media. So I have set up a Facebook page, Redistricting LA County. We have a Twitter account with a hashtag. We are working on having any of our bulletins that go out through GovDelivery to then also immediately go into the social media on our Facebook page. And we're doing a soft launch of that this month. We're having another meeting with the county later this week, and hopefully that will be up and running. In the meantime, I have uploaded all of your YouTube recordings onto the Facebook page. This is the Facebook page, opening it up here. You might all become followers, of it. We put the vital voices, any presentations, workshops, we'll just put them on here for you as well. Let me go back. So that's up and running. The other thing I'm going to turn over to Ty to go over, we wanted an efficient way. So if you do a workshop, you do a presentation, you're invited by some group to come and present, that you have an easy way for reporting your presentations and your workshops. In the course of routine matters, whether or not you're doing a workshop or you're at the grocery store, you may have someone come up to you and have a conversation with you where they start telling you what they want to do differently in terms of mapping, and that becomes an ex parte communication. You all have been trained to say, you need to come to one of our public hearings, to one of our regular meetings. I can't receive this comment, from you, but then you do need to report it. So this is the form, and Ty, I think I'm going to turn the screen over for you to share and go through how to fill out the form. Carolyn was going to show how to fill it out for her recent presentation she did with Commissioner Franklin. So Ty, are you ready to do that?
Yep. So would you like me to share my screen and just go through the form?
Well, I could go through the form. I have it ready to launch, or why don't you do it on your end?
No problem at all. So again, commissioners, this is a draft of the form, so feel free to reach out if you think there are any necessary edits. So how shall we go about this? Co-Chair Williams, did you want me to help you go through this to fill out your recent ex parte communication? Or would you like me to just go through the form one by one?
We can just go through the form, and this is for the presentation I made. So it would be my email in there, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so, I'm sorry, go ahead. So, I'm sorry, Co-Chair Williams, would you like me to fill this in for you, or would you just like me to go through the different?
I think we can just go through it. I don't know if we need to. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, of course, commissioners, please stop me at any time. If you have any questions, my eyes aren't on the hands, so sorry if I miss you.
I'll watch the hands for you, Ty.
Thank you. So again, commissioners, this is just a way to streamline, make it easier for you all. But of course, for folks who do not want to use the Google form, just let me know. I can send you a Word document that you can fill out that you can email to me as well in lieu of this. So the caveat with this Google form is that you will need to be logged into a Gmail account or another Google account. And the reason why you will need to be logged into a Google or Gmail account is to add an extra layer of security. In particular, we want to be sure that this entry to the form is from you, as well as any documents that you attach or upload to this particular Google Drive is from you. So we want to make that as secure as possible. So what you would need to do is just enter in your email address. And then from there, you can choose a date of when the ex parte communication or presentation occurred.
Okay. You can use mine. It was on March 26th.
Okay. March 26th.
Yep.
And then in some cases, some communication or some presentation may happen over multiple days or during a range of time. And if that's the case, then just enter in those additional dates here or the range of dates here in this next item. The next question is, what is the name of the commissioner reporting the presentation or ex parte communication? It's a drop down, so no worries about misspelling at all.
Yeah, and Commissioner, oh yeah, okay. Report.
So then co-chair Carolyn Williams would be reporting this. So drop down, click on co-chair Carolyn Williams. The next question asks which other commissioners, if any, were involved in the presentation or ex parte communication being reported. Here you can select multiple commissioners, and if in the case where there were no other commissioners involved, you can also select none. And so in this case, Co-Chair Williams, were there any other commissioners involved?
Commissioner Franklin.
So then here I would check Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
The next question asks, what type of presentation or ex parte communication are you reporting? And again, this is a drop down, so you can just click on the drop down. Your options are presentation, conversation involving redistricting or quote unquote line drawing, general contact with LA County supervisor or their family, staff, or agent, and other. So in this case, I believe Co-Chair Williams, it was a presentation.
Yes, it was.
And Commissioner Sarasota, I see your hand is up. Did you have a question?
I do, and I'm wondering if we move forward with this proposal of having community members join us during our outreach committee meetings once a month, would we be using this form to communicate that or to report that? Would it be necessary to communicate that?
Are you talking about the ad hoc working groups if they come, or if you're doing it? This is
yeah, ad hoc working group.
So you would do it, let's say, if all of a sudden the ad hoc working group conversation, the other outside group invited started saying, well, we want to tell you where to draw the lines. We would then have to report it. But if it's talking about procedures and process, no. Holly's here, add to it if I didn't fully encompass it, but this would be only if you're doing a presentation outside of CRC business or if a conversation happens that's inappropriate.
Got it, thank you.
Holly, is that consistent with your understanding?
I believe so, yes.
So in the case of where it may be some other communication or ex parte communication that isn't included in this dropdown, you can select other, and if it is other, then you can just describe this other ex parte communication or presentation. Here, the next question asks, what is the estimated number of attendees or individuals involved? This would be good for just the commission, for the commission to know how far their reach is going as well. And in this, so any question with an asterisk in it means that it is required. So you can simply say 0, 1, 2, 3, so on and so on. And so Co-Chair Williams, what would the number be here?
We had 100.
100.
Yeah, that's the top range.
Great. So the next set of question, or the next question asks, what is the estimated number of organizations represented or involved? Co-Chair Williams?
30.
30. Okay. The next question asks, what communication mode was used? This is a drop-down. You can choose email, phone call, video call, for example, Zoom, Skype, Google Hangout, Microsoft Teams, in person, or other.
Zoom, video.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Right. And again, if it was some, if you select other, then you can just describe in this next item what mode it was in particular. The next question asks, what are the names of the organizations or individuals involved? And here you can list all the names of the folks involved or the organizations. So in this case, you know, there's a lot of people. There are 30 organizations, so we won't spend the time putting all that in right now.
Well, let me ask the question here, because it was organized by 8 partners, and then they invited a number of other organizations. So I actually filled this out, and I only listed the person who invited me. But if we would want to identify all the names of the organizations that we are aware of, is what you're looking for, right?
That is up to the commission. This particular question is meant to just give you all more information.
Okay.
And it's also to show your reach. If you remember, the community groups, particularly when Cathay Fang spoke, talked about how many more hearings and workshops the California CRC had done. I think as you go forward, because each of you will be ambassadors and doing workshops and presentations, this will just sort of help to document the reach you've had beyond just the 7 public hearings, followed by the 2 in the fall.
Yeah.
Can we at some point talk a little bit about how detailed we need this to be? I mean, here's a good example. There were 30 organizations, 100 people. What's the right level of reporting for this?
So
maybe
I
Holly
think,
has an idea?
I think this is one where, for example, if you had, I think the default, a good default would be whoever the organizing organization was, and that's who you list. So if it turns out that, you know, in the audience, there were 30 there, but it was sponsored by the League of Women Voters of LA, you would put the League of Women Voters of LA. So I think you should be guided by the default of whoever the sponsoring organization is of your talk. And if it's a group of 8, then you would list the 8, but I think most times it's probably going to be less than that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the next question would be, what were the topics discussed or issues raised? And here again, it's up to your own discretion how much you want to describe and how much detail.
Is my default, I put redistricting.
No worries at all. And again, this is just only an example. So
Right.
in your own comfort, at your own convenience, fill it in when you can. And here, this is where you can upload any particular documents, whether it's a copy of the email that you received from somebody, a copy of the presentation that you gave. This is where you would be able to add that, and it would automatically upload to the Google Drive, which I would be able to also attach to this log that I will also be making public, posting to the public website. Commissioner Stetcher, you have your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to ask about access to the Google Drive. Where will we find the link? Is it on the, do we can do this from our personal computers, or do we have to do this from the BOS virtual desktop, etc.?
So the Google Drive is only accessible by me. So for you to add anything to the Google Drive, you would add it through the form. Again, if you're not comfortable with using the form, feel free to email me any of these documents, and then I would be able to create a log with all of this information and documents that will be made public.
I guess then the question is, where's the link to the form? I missed something.
Yeah, so the link to the form will be sent out once we have this finalized and once we show this to all the commissioners, making sure you all don't have any other questions or any suggested edits.
And if you have any trouble accessing it, Ty would walk you through how to do that.
Right.
But the idea was to try to make it easy, check marks, drop down menus, and then he'll produce a table with this information on a routine basis. Commissioner Wong's hand is up.
So do we have to attach that presentation each time we use it, even though it's the same presentation?
No.
Oh, okay.
You might attach the flyer, for example, that Commissioner Williams had. You may not have any attachments at all. You could just say, did the standard CRC presentation slides.
Yeah. And this isn't optional, so there's no asterisk here, so this is not required in order to submit the form. This is more so meant to, again, if perhaps somebody sent you an email, you can upload that email just so it's public record. But if there's also perhaps a presentation that hasn't been seen before, that can be uploaded as well.
Yeah, the email is sort of an important one. Like, let's say somebody sends you an email. I got one today from a neighborhood council that had a very specific issue because they're straddling 2 different superstorial districts. I'm not going to go into what the communities are, but they went into great detail. So they're already giving me something of how they like the lines redrawn. So that would be something, if you were a commissioner receiving that, you would want to attach.
So again, I want to reiterate that this Google form is one option. And this is just meant, again, to streamline things, to make it easier for commissioners so that all the questions are there. So this way I don't need to email you back and forth asking for particular questions. But again, if you are more comfortable with a Word document that you may have to download and upload again and email to me, I can also send that out to you as well. Are there any other questions or comments or suggestions on how to edit this form? Again, myself or Gayla will send out the link, and feel free to send any other questions or comments.
So can I ask a question? So if I just get an email inviting me to speak or asking if I'll speak on this or that, I don't have to report that, right? It's if it's about outreach or something.
Right.
Okay.
It's only when you actually do a presentation outside of a CRC publicized meeting, or you run into somebody in the grocery store, like I mentioned, and they start talking to you. You run into the daughter of a board of supervisor and they start talking to you. In your bylaws, Holly can go through what would be those conditions that would be considered ex parte that you would want to report as part of transparency. Holly,
right, but as long as I say, oh, I can't talk about this and stop it, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I can talk to you about the process. If you have an idea, come to our meeting.
So I don't think we have any more questions. I think people are ready.
And we're at 9:39, our earliest stopping time. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I do want to just say what a wonderful job you all did with the workshop. And I was so impressed with how you were able to get so many big, hairy, audacious issues in terms of some of the resolutions that Commissioner Holtzman put forward, and, you know, moving forward with the RFP and all the various aspects. You're a great commission.
We're getting stuff done.
You are.
Yes, we are.
So
We're getting more efficient.
Yeah.
we are getting more efficient. So it is
all
now,
this free time without maps.
so it is now 9:40. I'm thrilled to say that we appear to be at the end of our agenda. If there's nothing more for the good of the order, we will stand adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Yeah, good night.
Right.